Welcome to Kaiser Watch with John Kaiser. I'm your host, Jim Goddard. Welcome back to the show, John.
Jim, pleasure to be back on the show.
John, what's the significance of the latest news for the Rabbit North project of Tower Resources?
Tower Resources reported this week that it had finished its 5-hole drill program on the Lightning Zone for a total of 975 meters. They confirmed that they did indeed drill that 5th hole to the west of the Lightning Zone, the undercut hole number 26, which was a discovery hole beginning of the year. It yielded 95 meters of 1.4 gram per ton gold, including 19.2 meters of 4.42 grams per ton gold. Now, this hole was a 60-degree angle, and it's, of course, based on the new interpretation of the Lightning Zone as a near vertical north-south oriented structure. It intersected similar mineralization between 52 and 136 meters. And if you do the trigonometry, that works out to about a 40 to 42 meter true width. But the company also reported that although it looks similar, the veinlets, the pyrite veinlets, which have a close association with the gold content, they had a more crushed appearance than higher up in the structure. And this would be due to deformation, and supposedly this enhances the possibility that gold grade will be even better. So we'll have to wait and see if the gold grade improves at depth, and wait for the other results. They did say that the other 2 holes they just couldn't get done because the permit for the archaeological investigations, those never happened in time. So they're sitting back waiting for the assays to come in to see what to do next. But the important part of the news that just came out is they did some additional till sampling in an area between the Dominic Lake Train, which led to the Lightning Zone discovery, and to the west, couple kilometers to the west, they have the Durand Creek Train, which they sort of inferred from far downstream. They in the fan of sampling that they did, they picked up grains to the west that cannot physically or be part of the Dominic Train, so they inferred another source to the west. But in between, just to the east of this Durand Creek fault, they did a couple till samples which yielded very good counts of quite pristine gold. So they are now pretty sure that under that thin basalt cover that's to the north of this area, there is another gold source, possibly also a sort of north-south oriented structure. So the news this week really tells us that there may be several parallel Lightning Zone style structures, and with the gold content in the very pristine angular nature of it, it is very close. They may have to drill through the basalt cover to find it, but it's really opening up the exploration potential to build ounces through multiple zones, not just chasing one zone deeper and along strike to the south.
John, what's the latest news from the Reliance project of Endurance Gold?
Well, Endurance reported assays for holes number 35 to 38, which were all drilled from the same drill pad to the southeast of the Eagle South Leaders Zone. It extends that zone another 50 meters to the southeast and also demonstrates that the shallow dipping Eagle Zone is also present. They've completed 33 holes, but only reported grades for 16, so half the program is still to come. The next batch will be numbers 39 to 46, and these were drilled at the northwestern end of this Eagle South Zone, sort of more downhill towards where the Imperial Zone is. And these will be important because this is a big gap in their understanding of this Royal Treasure shear corridor. If these run, this is good because they have drilled 7,000 meters of the 8,000 meter program. That means they've got 3 or 4 holes left. These will be done by the end of October, and then they're going to pause because they also want to go back to the market and finance for a much bigger program afterwards. But they want to have all these holes in, and there's the possibility of resuming work in the first quarter of 2023. And of course, there'll still be snow on the ground then. You can work the year round, but they would be working more towards the easier part farther downhill along the road. Now, the next really important batch will be holds number 47 to 54. And these step out 100 and 150 meters to the southeast beyond the known limits of the Eagle South feeder zone and its shallow dipping Eagle zone. And they haven't disclosed anything about what these intersected, but these will be critical because if these also run gold, we'll have a system of at least 400 meter strike. They're also getting a better understanding of these quartz vein structures. That number 24 and 27, they've named them. These sort of parallel the trend of the corridor. The quartz itself is barren, but the quartz seems to have been part of a feeder structure, and along its flanks is where the gold mineralization has piled up, so often on both sides. And they're also getting a better handle on the sort of royal shear thrust fault, which is the hanging wall of the zone is these argillitic sediments that are unrelated to the mineralization. They seem to have been shoved over top, but they're now looking at the possibility, based on the diagram that the cross-section that they published, that there may be this altered mineralized corridor may have a greater width to the west, and so if they step farther to the west and drill through the garbage rocks, they may end up encountering parallel quartz vein structures that are associated with these vertical mineralization. So it remains to be seen what the assays tell us about the drilling to the southeast and also to the northwest. These last two drill pads are at the limit of the road. They haven't built the road farther up the hill because they do not have soil geochem in that direction. So rather than waste money chasing building a road where there might not be any gold mineralization, they're going to wait for the assays in this area to see what happens to the zone at its southeastern limit. The other bit of news that might come while we wait for these assays to come in is they did do some work on the Bandito rare earth project in the Yukon. It was a LiDAR survey. A LiDAR survey basically measures the topography in great detail. And the idea there is that within this red syenite intrusion, when they did the sampling in 2012, there were some areas that kicked very high grades with substantial heavy rare earth enrichment. And they want to go back at some point and finish sampling them northern half of this intrusion and also do more detailed sampling to see where the zones are. But because of the potential that there are some of these zones may have maybe recessively weathered or actually stick up higher, they're hoping that this LiDAR survey will reveal this topographical differences that could identify linear trends that with the existing sample database that they have, they may be able to identify zones within the overall zone which represent the heavy rare earth enrichment. And if this comes through as a positive, actually gives them additional information for targeting, they could go back in there in June of next year and quite quickly set up a much more serious exploration to show that the Bandito system is a very serious heavy rare earth enriched deposit with potentially high grades. Strange Lake in Quebec, Labrador, it is the biggest and richest heavy rare earth enriched deposit in the world, about 1.5% with about 45% heavies, but it's in a very remote location. The Bandito project, yes, it's in southern Yukon, but it's fairly close to road access and not in the middle of nowhere like Strange Lake. So this could be an exciting story in 2023 in parallel with the Reliance project, for which we hope to finally see a much more detailed picture of its geometry and what the company wants to do next, and then see a market reaction that takes the stock higher and allows financing to come in the door that allows a major program to take place next year, bigger and better than this year's program.
Does Bell Copper's Big Sandy qualify as an emerging discovery?
In my definition of an emerging discovery, it's one where there's enough geology there in existing results to tell you that you are on the edge of a significant discovery. And on a more normal market, you would get a significant market boost and be able to finance the follow-up drilling. But in the very bearish market climate that we have today, the market says everything is, glass is 90% empty. And when Bell Copper published the results of its 3-month hole BS3 in early June, the market was disappointed. Now, the Big Sandy story is the hunt for the missing top of the Diamond Joe porphyry stock, whose root has had lots of drilling, lots of studying done on it, but it's too low in the porphyry system to have a meaningful copper mineralization. But it is very large. It implies a pyrite system 6 by 5 kilometers wide, which is like bigger than some of the richest deposits in the world, such as Escondida and Chuquicamata. And what Tim Marsh has been doing is trying to figure out the source of this. And the work, he first went in there in 2010, 2013 and did some work, but they ran out of money and didn't really figure out. But they went back in again from the knowledge that was gained at Perseverance, which is to the north, and that's also looking for the missing top from the Wheeler Wash stock. That project's now under option to Robert Friedland's Cordoba Minerals, but everything he learned about how the basin range works in this area, he went back to the Diamond Joe and the Big Sandy area and did some reconstruction, and it turns out that the displacement may have been 13 kilometers to the northeast or east-northeast, and it appears to have been downdropped as a result of sort of the basin range dropping down. So it slid off the top of the original route and then got downdropped and then buried with the 1,000 meters of gravel. So this hole didn't hit bedrock until about 1,100 meters, then had this leach cap for 150 meters or so, and then had 200 meters of supergene enrichment, which got people excited. But it only ran, it was primarily chalcocite and a bit of bornite, and it only ran 0.42% copper. Now, at that depth, that's worthless. You need at least 0.8% copper to get, to have an underground blockading operation or perhaps even an in situ leach type situation. But they continued with the drill and persisted another 500 meters. And that ran a fairly monotonous 0.16% copper, and that was all primary copper, the chalcopyrite. And there was a lot of pyrite there. The sulfur ratio from the iron sulfur to the copper sulfur, it was about 20-1, and that's more typical of the periphery of a porphyry system. It'll be on the outside of where the copper-enriched shell is, and at the time in June, the company had not published any sections to help ordinary investors understand the geological word salad that the news release consisted of. But now they have provided a section in a presentation. In fact, Tim Marsh has been doing presentations for these various geological groups. There's one done on September 6th. You go to the website and you will find it. It's on YouTube. Skip to 8 minutes. There are some problems in the beginning. And the Big Sandy discussion, which really explains the whole search for the missing top of this porphyry system in a very good manner. It stops around minute 47 where it transitions to talking about Perseverance. But if you want to understand why this is an emerging discovery, go watch this. Now, the stock has slumped to 16, 17 cents because the market didn't really understand this geological context. The company now has the location for hole number 4 permitted. It has the pad built. It has the road in place. It even has a drill rig lined up. But there is one problem, and this is, of course, what plagues juniors in a bear market. They do not have enough money to drill the next hole. Now, the next rig is going to be one which does the pre-collaring through the gravel much faster, much more efficiently, so this hole should not take 3 months to grind out. The last hole cost about $700,000 US. They do not have that much money in the bank. They do not yet have a financing lined up. So they're in this sort of situation where they need a financing before they can resume drilling hole number 4. And this hole, if Tim's analysis of this situation where the supergene mineralization of 0.4%, he says this is not possible to have been derived by the underlying 0.16% chalcopyrite primary mineralization. He thinks it's a lateral manifestation, and that the really high-grade supergene enrichment blanket is off to the east, and beneath that, of course, will be hopefully high-grade primary copper chalcopyrite mineralization. So this hole they've got spotted now kind of goes into the heart of this target. This could make or break the story if they do find that this is what the center is, and it doesn't have the 0.8% copper grade that's needed. So, but the context is such that it's very likely that this is an enriched copper system based on everything that they've learned about the Big Sandy route that's the Diamond Joe Peak that's to the west. So this is a stock ideal bottom fish to purchase. The emerging study discovery is visible. Once a financing is in place, and they do not need to do some monster dilutionary financing at these levels, they just need to get enough money in. And Crescat's still a supporter of the company. I don't think they'll put up all the money, but if somebody else will come in, they'll probably help contribute. So this is a fantastic story, and the company's finally helping the audience understand it better by introducing graphics so that we can visualize what it is that Tim's thinking about the location of the Big Sandy top to the Diamond Joe porphyry stock.
John, thank you so much for the update.
You're welcome, Jim.
We've been talking with John Kaiser. I'm Jim Goddard. Comments made on Kaiser Watch are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as a recommendation to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at kaiserresearch.com.